I'm a third-year practice-based PhD student in interior architecture. I did a master's in textiles, innovation and new applications, where I developed an interest in this material and its use in architectural settings. My research is an interdisciplinary research covering areas between interior architecture, fashion design and textiles. What I'm going to talk about today is about practice as a research method, presented in a case study I did as a part of my practice-based research methods. These objects, which you can see in this slide, I don't know if you can tell what those are. They are a combination between physical models and conceptual models. So these objects and models are neither a final product nor a final outcome of my research. They were a tool to drive my research practice. So practical investigations in this case study generated questions and discussions and promoted an understanding of fusion between practice and process. It manifested a key dialogues between garment design, as considered as a type of form, and space design when made in a similar way and from a similar material, which is textiles. It also manifests a key dialogue between digital and manual practices. So I want to give you a bit of the idea about my research in a whole, then we'll go into details. So my research is about fashioning the space and investigating the potentials of space structure and texture through textile. Where the verb fashion here has nothing to do with fashion as a trend or a changing season product. The verb fashion here, according to Collins English Dictionary, means to give a particular form to make a suitable for fitting, to contrive, to manage. In other words, it has the essence of craft and involves hands. Research question: what are the potentials of a space, of textile-based space, when is made in a similar way a garment is? In other words, how the architectural approach, language and vocabulary can be informed and extended through transference of garment design methodology, providing, maintaining and exploiting important properties and qualities of textiles. So there's several terms I want to explain in the beginning, just to be aware which type of spaces or area I'm considering in this research. So when I say scenic spaces, it refers to interior architectural spaces which are temporary and used as a medium of communication to tell a story, deliver a message, an experience, or an expression at a contemporary stage space for performance, like dance, theater, ballet, opera, or a musical. Or to present a theme, like an exhibition stand, present a product, like fair stand, window display, or deliver a brand or identity, like an event and show. Well, those scenic spaces I'm considering here are mainly made of textiles. Well, and this is not a new thing. Textiles have been used in architecture since ancient times. But architects have their own approach when constructing use of this material, like in tensile structures and inflatable structures. Sometimes they use it as a skin to cover a skeleton. Or we know the use of textiles from traditional theater when we talk about flats in stage sceneries. So architects are not trained as tailors and don't have their skills or their insight about textiles. In addition, for architects, textile is just one material option amongst a wide range of other materials, whereas in garment making, textile is a major material choice for designers. What I mean by garment design methodology, it refers to the body of methods, procedures, working concepts, and rules employed by fashion designers or garment makers, such as method of draping, techniques of pleating, notions of pattern, block, and toile, which refers to the process of creating a 3D form, which is a garment, to a 2D material, which is textile in this case. So fashion designers gained a large collective body of experience over a long history of garment making. According to Hodge 2006, over the last 10 years, architects have begun to pay closer attention to fashion design practice for two main reasons. Like, the first one is that many of the famous fashion house or companies like Prada, for example, hired or commissioned very famous architectural practices to make their own shops. Like Prada commissioned Dream Colas to make her stores. So architects start to have a closer look on fashion and become curious about this discipline. Architects as well, as they moved from drawing by hand to digital tools, they become fascinated by complex forms, and they looked on fashion as a source of inspiration for complex forms. So there has been a parallel practices between the two disciplines in terms of sharing inspiration. But this study, I'm attempting to move from parallel into intersecting practices and to extend the architectural approach and create a new insight and awareness that has the potential to change the way we see and think about textile-based scenic spaces. So why textiles? Textiles are thick, stretch, transparent, non-transparent, has different texture and colors, woven, non-woven, has mechanical properties. They love to bend and lean, and they love to drape under gravity. So 2010, Cluster 2007, Gwen 2010, and Sepfer 2011 all highlighted these properties of textile, like flexibility, lightness, and ease of assembly and enfolding. In addition to the visual and tactile properties of this material, which is particularly important to scenic interiors, which are generally spatial designs that communicate a content with an audience. So this material is really versatile, and according to Kronger 2009, textiles absorb noise and give control on an amount of light entering the view. Their modified characteristics and application potentials make textiles a highly interesting architectural material. So textiles has many properties and qualities that make it a preferred material for temporary use in scenic spaces. In addition to its lightweight, it can save fuel on transport and be eco-friendly. Make this design eco-friendly. When I talk about interdisciplinary studies and methodology transfer, if you can see those two images here, the left image shows a conventional dressmaking where a toile is being developed. In the right image, a contemporary architect is manipulating a piece of cloth, but not on a mannequin, and the outcome will not be a garment. Yet they can share the same material, and they can share some elements of the process, particularly involving hands, sort of craft. So when trying to transfer a garment design methodology, this transference is not an automatic procedure. It requires practical investigations and tests, implies developing adjustment, sometimes discarding to determine which element of process can be transferred, which can't. This process raised issues and questions that can advance into both practices of interior architecture and garment design, and to textiles innovation at the same time. SusanFallouh 2011 says much materials innovation emerges not in the making of new materials, but in the transforming of the way in which we handle them. So this was a very important point of my research, just to gain this insight or the way how garment designers handle this material, and trying to transfer some of their methods or principles and see if this would work or not in architectural settings. Toshiko Mori, an architect who aims to use textile tectonics as a new method of fabrication to enhance the performance of buildings, said, textile tectonics requires innovation of a new detailing technique by transferring tailoring methods and both building technologies. Practice as a research method. Practice is a crucial drive for my research process. If we try to identify what practice is in general, that is the application in action of rules and principles provided in advance by theory, according to Crayon and Snodgrass 2005. In art design, practice as a research method is developing and making creative work as an explicit and intentional method for specific research purposes. For example, gathering or generating data analysis and communication of research findings compare those of other practitioners, according to Gray and Millen 2004. I attempted to use design practice to understand a range of different practices using one's own practice and as a means of generating new data through real experimental activity, which engages learning through doing and to develop an informed understanding. I used as well visual thinking. Making use of visual expertise to emphasize and communicate concepts, interpretations, evaluation, and so on. Example, mapping, photography, 3D sketching, and modeling. And this is according to Gray and Millen 2004 as well. So those was the main practice-based methods I followed in my research, and I'm going to talk specifically now about this case study of ECA exhibition stand for Fashion Graduate Week students. Well, normally as a research method in social science, a case study is in-depth study of relevant examples, but in art and design research, it can be a bit different, where the case may be a practitioner, an environment, for example, a studio workshop, a project, a commission, a consultancy, a learning setting, and so on, according to Gray and Millen 2004. So this specific space design was determined to guide and drive practical experiments and not as a final outcome of my research. Through the University Innovative Learning Week, I had the chance to experiment as a practitioner with ECA exhibition stand for Fashion Graduate Week in London. The two process and the students, fashion interior design students as well, have participated in designing and fabricating the same space but in different process of different design. They had their own design and their own process, where I took part as a participant observer. The investigations raised many questions and discussions, and I'm going to go through all these questions later on. So I'm just going to talk about my process first in this design, then I'm going to cover the students one if I have time. So for me, I started the design relying on previous experiments and using ribbing or boning method, which is normally used to construct a volume in garment. I don't know if anybody has any clue about this is crinoline, or using sort of boning material to support a form in the garment. Yeah. I don't know if girls would have some knowledge about these things. So depending on this method of using ribbing, I started some experiments using white lycra and some cocktail sticks. Those small, on very small scale, those pieces I produced showed a tendency to twist. And this may be because of this can be related to the weave direction itself in the material, or it could be to other structural reasons which required further investigations. So initially I started with, I attached the piece to a frame in different positions and absorbed its behavior. On the next step, I tried to achieve a freestanding stability, as this design meant to be installed in the sculpture court and not to be attached to any external frame. So the top one is the first experiment with the frame, and the other 3 images would show a freestanding piece. I try to exploit fabric property or tendency to drape and lean under gravity, the force of gravity, to achieve a freestanding piece. In this piece model, I positioned fabric in a situation where it could drape and lean under gravity between fixed points. So I had just 3 fixed points in the beginning and in the end and in the center, and just made the fabric drape between these 3 points under gravity. The resulting shape was a single twist model that required 3 main points. Now, I used this twist as a sort of space divider, and used a couple of them in a symmetric way to create a sort of 4 spaces for the students. I aim to create sort of simple contemporary background that students can exhibit their work without having anything distracting the main products that need to be displayed, and give an equal opportunity for each group of students to exhibit their work, because normally they have this you got the best bit, you got the, they don't have really fair place or equal opportunity to display their work. So working on architectural scale made modeling of the whole space unachievable on actual scale. So this image you're seeing now is a conceptual design made on computer, and it's not real. Because working on the whole space on actual scale wasn't something achievable. So consequently, I just followed a conventional architectural approach and designed the whole space abstractly. I resorted to use digital tools, a combination between 2 softwares, AutoCAD and 3D Max Studio. The process was fast, form was easy to edit. So far was good. On the design side, digital tools were inspiring and extended the language of design modulation. I experimented with one object, which is the single twist piece, then created 2 other options using simple digital modifiers like twist and bend. So the one on the left hand is the original one, and the other 2 shapes are just modified by using very simple modifiers on the computer. So digital tools as well give me fabrication information, because conventional architectural approach, when you have the set of plan sections and elevations, wasn't helpful to construct these pieces. So I had to, digital tools were able to give me the patterns which are required. They wasn't quite right when the computer generated them. I had to edit them manually to get them right and achieve a continuity and efficient use of the material. Then I made a paper scaled model on scale 1 to 15, just to test those patterns if they are right. On the next step, I made a bigger scale ones, scale 1 to 5. The process, this slide shows the process of tracing, cutting, and seaming the darts, which is a fold between two edges in the fabric. And those were the model scale 1:1, which was finally achieved. So 2 models were achieved. They still have one model, which is the Lycra one, is still under process. It hasn't finished yet. So if we come to the results, there's some problem in displaying the slides, but that's okay. So if I just come to the discussion, certainly there is differences between designing an interior space in general and designing a garment. There are differences in process itself, how we draw a model and model designs, and the place of drawing and model in design process itself. Differences in whether it is essential to or not to have experimentations with actual material in actual scale. So in garment making process, designers either drape on the dress stand directly or start from pattern blocks. And they do sketches and prototype. And this prototype is informed and tested throughout the process. So they don't design and draw and finally make. There is a bit of correlation and conjunction between design and making. While in architecture we start abstractly, we design, draw, model, and finally build. There's no actual working with the material until the final stages, and this was the main differences between the 2 processes. And investigations shows that if a space would be made of textile and it has to be sewn, and it has to have a model that is sewn and made of textile, and it has to be tested through the process because this material has unpredictable behavior. Other result was that gaining this expertise of garment maker and their insight and the way they handle material have extended. I mean, when it's added to our repertoire as an interior architect, it's extended our abilities as a designer to deal with this material. When we talk about issues of between modeling and making, in respect of details, the differences between modeling and built work are critical and an inherent part of the design process. Ms. van der Rohe famously suggested that God is in the detail, and many a builder that the devil is in the detail, according to Stacy 2010. So actually, digital modeling. So the first model is actual model. The second is digital, and the other 2 is physical. One on a small scale, one on big scale. Digital models didn't. I would never necessarily think of making this design without having done this experiment, because I will never understand how this material would behave. It will twist or it would do. So those practical experiments were crucial and essential to drive and made me design or make this form built on an understanding of the material, not just conceptually making a design which will never work on the real world. Additionally, the digital model didn't expose the issue of details and stability. It could fly, but when I started to make physical ones, the issues of details and joints start to merge clearly throughout making bigger scale. So I will not have time to go through the student process. So this is the student process, and this is the final stand they made. One comment I have on the student process, they were really experimenting with material and working like on a 3D sketch. But one thing they could do more, they shared the process of garment making, the same process of garment making, but they didn't choose actually quite the physical properties of textile. They used the transparency and color, so some of the visual properties, but not the structural ones. They just used it as cover for the skeleton. They could do more if they integrated textile in the structure itself. So finally, according to my case study and practical investigations in this case study, practice was, for me, actually a drive for research process and wasn't a final outcome. If we asked, should we have a conjunction between drawing, modeling, and building, I would say that a model of a space should share some of the real building techniques, processes, and materials. And on the reflection on disciplinary practice, looking on other disciplines made us question, understand, challenge our own approach as an interior architects in terms of validity of our representations as drawing and modeling, and to express the actual and expressing the actual space and our design process and sequence that we design, draw, then build. This has been questions. We shouldn't leave the building and experimenting with the material to the last stage, where design process, where the modeling and the build may occur in conjunction rather than on sequence. Involving with experimentation with actual material develops new expertise and skills which, if combined with our own repertoire as a designer, can extend and inform our architectural approach, our architectural design vocabulary and language in spatial design. And finally, as an interior architect, there are always more we can do with a piece of cloth. Thank you.